That is for everything we've done. That's
Yes.
an entire career. It's that much.
You, Jerry Seinfeld, and you, Colin Quinn, are friends, and you have been for many years. I know talking about craft is death, but can you safely talk about craft with each other, or does it start to get into
Oh,
areas?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do it all the time.
What we love to talk about, actually, is the brutality of writing, because that is really the essence of comedy. Most comedians, you know, you're as funny as you're funny. You don't really get too much funnier than whatever you had when you started. But learning to be a writer is the real delta, if I can go do that kind of language here. I'm sorry. Learning to be a writer is the delta of success and failure in comedy. Wouldn't you agree, Colin?
Yeah. And when I started, Jerry's already doing it, but it was like, you know, Jerry Seinfeld, he writes at least a couple of hours a day. And it was like a big thing that he actually wrote. And then all the good, Chris, Rock, everybody like that, if you don't write, you're never gonna, like he said, you're as funny as you're gonna be, but you have to keep pushing the writing. And it's hard. That's why we discuss. It's like patting each other on the back, like, come on, you gotta go, you know, because they remind you, there's no easy way to do it. There's no shortcut with comedy.
And there's no supervision either. No one knows or cares if you're
Right.
writing, you know, or doing anything. You're so on your own in comedy. It's just, they put you in a room with toys and go make something.
Yeah.
And when you say writing, I mean, you're literally, you know, at that, I mean, once was a typewriter, now a computer screen. You're not just sort of riffing into a microphone, seeing what comes out, shaping it after.
Well, you do that too, but still, I mean, it's like mapping out, well, what do I want to say about this, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I always do. Everybody in comedy's fantasy is that you can just riff.
Right.
Come up with stuff. The beauty of writing is you realize you have to confront the fact that you're not a genius. That
Right.
it takes dirty work to come up with your stuff, you know?
You know, part of what we're talking about tonight is New York City history and Colin's special, The New York Story.
Colin, I love to talk about this. In the 60s and 70s, 50s too, people lived in the city because they had to, because it was work.
Right.
Nobody thought it was cool. There was no urban culture of being in the city. It was just, that's where the job was. Let's be close to the job.
In The New York Story, I mean, you talk about, you know, I mean, historically, the arrival of the Irish and the arrival of the Jews here in the city.
Sure.
The Irish, at least, you know, as you portrayed them, I mean, they were the organizers, the laborers. The Jews were the kvetchers, it seems.
No, the Italians are the laborers.
Oh, okay.
We were the civil servants.
Right.
It's a different thing.
Okay.
Let's get that straight.
Right,
Then the
right.
Italians came in their big hands and we're just like, okay, over there and build that way. And yeah, that's how it was.
Right. Do you see yourself? I mean, do you see some part of your character, you know, do you see your identity reflected in that in some way?
Sure, in like the cynical part of the Irish or the sarcastic, you know. I mean, what people don't understand about Irish people is we look at ourselves as real intellectuals for the most part, you know. And people don't realize we think we're the greatest writers, just the big intellectuals. So, yeah, of course I see that in myself and most Irish people. I think, like everybody else, we all love, you know, we're proud of our writing people. And we're even proud of a guy like Conor McGregor, who's not an intellectual. Everybody's very tribal when it comes down to it.
Right, right. I mean, Jerry, what do you think about? I mean, you know, Colin talks about, you know, the Jews arriving and being the kind of, you know, it's your line.
He helped me.
Yeah. You talk about them complaining on the boat ride, and then they.
Right, we sat down. Yeah.
Colin is one of the great Semitophiles that I have ever met. I mean, he really understands deeply the Jewish character and the Jewish mindset. Yes. He has kind of adopted it, I think, and really made an Irish-Jewish cocktail out of his whole personality.
Thank you. Yeah, I do. I've studied the Jews a long time, and I know them very well.
Do you see that dynamic replicated in any way in the way that the two of you work together, or is it totally different?
No, but I mean, Jerry is a real direct. Like people always like, oh, how do you direct a one-man show? But it's like directing anything. You can say about anything. He's his editor, writer, you know, like, and also stage stuff. He knows, like he understands. Like he'll say to me, and he's the only person with the authority, may I say, that I would listen to when he goes, well, I don't get it. What's the joke there? like normally it'd be like, get the joke, you're not a comedian. But he's like, I don't get it. It's Jerry Seinfeld. You kind of have to take that, and say maybe.
I mean, Jerry, I have to imagine, anybody that anybody that has access to you, other comedians that are friendly with you, would love to have, your collaboration, your input on the things that they do. And I'm sure you're very careful and sparing about who you formally collaborate with. So why Colin? Why work with him in that way?
I don't know what they're laughing at, but
I think of it as it's a mark of distinction. I mean, who else's shows have you
Exactly,
directed?
but it could have been phrased more delicately. They're laughing at your audacity.
I was doing an episode of Comedians Cars with Norm Macdonald the other day, and one of the questions he asked me, he says, if you don't like a guy's act, is there any chance you could like him? And I had to think for a second, and I went, no. And so, but when you do like someone's act, and you, because comedians, as much as, we have lots of friends whose acts, you could take it or leave it. And it has to at least rise to a certain level of, I don't know what that is, but that's part of comedic friendship, is you have to kind of have a respect for their work. Right. And I've always just adored the way he writes, the way he thinks, the way the things he finds. They're wonderful, small, hilarious things. So for me, it's like, it's fun to play with. They're beautiful, building blocks or whatever. And he struggles a little bit with the overall structure, and that's the part that I really like.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that people may not know about Comedians in Cars, I mean, you've been kind enough to me to let me see you actually doing the post-production on the show. And it's just really a couple of people. It's like yourself, your editor, a couple producers, that's it. And I was really, just kind of stunned by that. I mean, is that part of the appeal for you of just the compactness of it?
Yes.
And just you and your idea and the execution of it?
Yeah. This is one of the really cool things about Netflix, I think, to give them a plug, which they deserve, is that they seem to have grasped this basic idea of how to make shows with creative people that the corporate world has never fully understood, which is you can't help these people. Find someone you like, give them the money, and just hope for the best. You can improve their odds with your notes and your thoughts and we were looking for this, we think the public likes that. Nobody knows what works. That's the truth. Right. It's all just shooting arrows at the sun. So, but they have created this platform now where they can finance so many artists, and then the public becomes the note session with the product out there. And that's the only real way to decide. I mean, that's how comedians work. We decide, we write the jokes, but the public picks them. And then we do the ones they laughed at.
Thank you so much for sitting
Thanks,
down.
Dave.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Dave.